Welcome back to the Minty Mobile Games Podcast. I do not know what episode number this is because I am super prepped and ready. And I actually have a special guest today, and it is my cousin, Tanner. And Tanner, if you could introduce yourself, maybe give some fun facts, describe yourself a little bit for our loyal little 75 viewer base.
Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot interesting about me, really. I am not the mobile gaming professional that you want to have on the podcast, but here I am.
He's also disgustingly humble.
I'm really tall, and that's something that none of you will ever be able to verify. But that's about the only thing that's cool about me, I guess. But I've been... we played games all growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So I've kind of strayed from mobile gaming, but I honestly had no idea you did podcasts. So once I found out that you had a channel and did all this stuff, I was like, oh, I sit at home and steam and fume about some stuff. So I was like, this is a good plan. This is a good chance.
So this is your venting session.
This is a good chance to let it loose. And you guys will have to let me know. Like, if I'm totally crazy and I'm totally wrong and my opinions are just way off, let me know. You know, it's not his fault. But I want to know if I'm validated. If there's other people out there that agree, or if I just need to, go back in my room and close the door, turn the lights off, and stick to my games.
Oh yeah, like Tanner mentioned, we actually grew up gaming together quite a bit.
Yeah. And
literally the first, I know mobile gaming, you can equate that to Game Boys and stuff like that in the golden age of Nintendo. But the first ever iPod Touch I ever saw was Tanner's. And he was showing me all these mobile games. I was like, I didn't even know that these exist. Like Dungeon Hunter, I know you had Dungeon Hunter, the Diablo ripoff.
Oh yeah.
And then that one first person shooter that looked kind of like Halo. I don't know what that was.
Oh.
I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it used to be really popular.
The last time I thought about that was probably when I played it with you. But just saying that, I know exactly which game you're talking. Oh no!
It starts with an E, I feel like, or something like Enoch or something, or
I don't know. Anything I say is going to be blasphemous to that game, so I won't. I won't smear it with a horrible guess. But
yeah, so now you guys know that literally the first ever touchscreen was introduced by Tan Man here.
Yeah, and I have a story from that, but I'm going to just give a disclaimer. My ADHD is all over the place. We're absolutely going to get derailed through this whole thing. It'll be a journey. Hopefully it'll be a fun one, but we'll have some certified ADHD moments when I realize how far off we've gotten, and then we'll bring it. This is Perfect. One of those certified ADHD moments. Because that first touchscreen that you got, I think it was in, I don't remember, middle school or something?
Probably. I think we were both in middle school. Yeah.
In middle school, we had PE that you had to run the stupid mile or whatever that you had to do all the time. And they had time T-shirts, so you got a different colored PE shirt if you were faster than all the other kids.
Just
to flex at how
modern
cool
segregation.
It was honestly like one of those trophies that you get from participating in soccer when you're 5 years old.
Oh yeah.
But it actually meant something because it wasn't a participation award. It was I can run faster than you, and that was not okay. And so I wanted one of the. If they had a green one that was you're faster than the average, and then they had the yellow or the gold ones that was you're the kid everybody wants to be.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I got to get one of those shirts.
I have to be elite.
And so I legitimately tried. I was like, I have to get. I'm super competitive. And I think you know that.
Oh yeah.
But I tried to get that green shirt, and I was off by I don't know, maybe 20 seconds or something. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. But they had a lost and found that was in the office. There was a green shirt sitting in that bin, and it had a time that was reasonable for what I might have actually accomplished. So I grabbed it, and my whole thing was, I told my mom that I wanted a green shirt. She was, I also wanted an iPod Touch, so she was like, "If you get a green shirt, I'll buy you an iPod Touch." So I came home with that green shirt, and I came home with an iPod Touch.
No way. Dude, what a finesse. That's
I don't know if
funny.
I ever told my mom that. Mom, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I really wanted the iPod.
Dude, that was the perfect wraparound. I was like, what does this story have to do with anything?
I've never stolen anything in my life except for that green T-shirt from the Lost and Found in middle school, and I'm going to hell for it.
Well, you just exposed yourself.
Yeah, well, it's all right.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
feel free to report him.
Yeah, feel free to send this to my mom. Most of you probably have her number.
Oh, that was so funny.
Yeah.
Well, now that you know Tanner and his brand of humor and his storytelling and his ADHD.
Yeah, certified ADHD moment.
Yeah. We kind of have, he actually put together the kind of levels or steps we're going to be talking about, the points. He actually drafted it up on Microsoft Word in like 30 seconds.
That should scare you all.
Yeah. And so I'm actually going to be kind of along for the ride for this episode. But he did organize it, the eras of mobile gaming, the very beginning, like back in like the golden era of Nintendo that I mentioned previously. We're going to be going from there to like modern mobile gaming, and we're just going to follow that timeline and kind of his viewpoints of loving mobile gaming, introducing it to me, but then falling off, and then why he fell off, and the strengths of mobile gaming today, strength of mobile gaming throughout that entire timeline. So you wanted to start in the past, so
yeah, and there's I don't know where to start specifically, but I mean, I guess we'll start from the very beginning, since the dawn of man. No, and this is where we're gonna just have the first angry horde descend. This is like a total. Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion, is the original mobile gaming.
Mm-hmm. Like, and explain that, because I'm sure everyone's like, what are you talking about?
I mean, some people might be like, yeah, that makes sense. And if you're that kind of person, then like, high five, we're on the same. You guys are gonna like this podcast.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then like, hear me out. I mean, like, it was literally your imagination was the game, and that's where every story comes from. That's what games are. It's
creation,
storytelling. It's watching a movie, but you're able to control the narrative, or like the first person shooters is you are a movie. Mm-hmm. You're telling a story, but you get to control how it goes and whatever. So Dungeons and Dragons was you create your character, very first character creation, you know, whatever, and then you take your dice, which is essentially your gaming system. You go to your friend's house who's prepared the campaign, he's like built the level, built the whole world for you, and then you role played it out. And
very portable too.
There's a reason that it was super popular back in the day, and it's because there was like no limitations. And we'll get into open world games later. That was like the original open world game, because you can do whatever. And honestly, more flexible than any other game that exists. You can do anything you wanted. And so, anyway, moving on from Dungeons and Dragons, which I have recently gotten into. I never played Dungeons and Dragons until I was like, I don't know, a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I played it with my dad and his friend from when he grew up, and it was like the most fun I've ever had. And so I was like,
oh no, I'm hooked.
It's the first time that you play a game and you're like, this is way fun. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's like trying a new food for the first time and realizing that it's divine. Mm-hmm. It was super fun. I've gotten back into that and whatnot, but that's kind of why I was like, Dungeons and Dragons, I have to give the homage there. But besides that, like you said, Nintendo was like the golden era of mobile gaming. And I still remember very vividly the Christmas morning when I opened the Nintendo Advance SP.
Oh, man.
Electric green or
the
whatever
foldable.
it was.
Oh, I remember that. The lime color. Those are super rare now, apparently.
Yeah. I was looking at it. There's a whole bunch of weird stuff. I won't get into that certified ADHD moment, but I found out how rare they were, and I was like, I wonder if anyway, SP,
the Game Boy Advance SP, for sure.
Super fun. Pocket held, open it up, classic turn on sound. Everybody,
ding!
Yeah, I can't go that high. My voice is way too low to hit that.
It's going to be very jarring going from my prepubescent voice and then to your
people don't know me. Certified ADHD moment. When I used to answer the phone when I was growing up, people would always mistake me for my mom, because I just mimicked their like. Oh yeah. My mom always answers the phone. Hello.
Oh yeah.
And so I always answered that same way, and people were like, "What? Is this Natalie?" And no.
The power.
It's her son, and now I'm like, "Hello." Anyway, so I used to have people all the time, and I don't know if that played into like my voice being lowered. Anyway, certified ADHD moment. Moving on.
So, the Game Boy Advance SP. That was, honestly, I was a little bit too young for the Game Boy Color to really like be the system of choice. It was the Game Boy Advance, like the unfoldable, and then you were the foldable, because we're 1 year apart, right?
Something like, I think it's like 9 months.
Yeah, something like that. And so, Game Boy Advance, that's like where portability of gaming was just mind-blowing, man.
Yeah.
And Game Boy Advance has one of the best I would say, gaming libraries, tit for tat, that I've ever seen.
It was super fun. I mean, the lineup was unreal. Any game genre that you could imagine was on there.
They tried some wacky stuff.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when I say every genre, nowadays first-person shooters is like the game genre.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And platformers were primarily what was going on back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
But even in that, like, platforming or whatever, there was so much
crazy
diversity.
Mechanics,
Oh,
yeah.
And this will be a trip down memory lane because I mean, I had no idea. Like, sometimes we'd go to family reunions or whatever. We'd be off in the corner playing our games, and you'd be like, "Oh, dude, have you tried this game before?" And I'd be like, "That is just so far out of left field. Like, that is so different from what I would be drawn to." And in a lot of times, I was like, "This is fun. It's a Wayne game." That's what they became. They became cousin games.
Yeah.
But then Castlevania,
dude, Symphony of the Night, man.
That game for me became like what I still look for games like that.
Oh, dude.
Because it hit so many awesome points. Like, storyline was like, I don't remember if
it wasn't super detailed, but like it was enough to keep you wanting to know more. Yeah, I would say the characters are good.
I won't spoil the ending in case anybody wants to go and read. I
think was it Aria of Sorrow? I think it's Aria of Sorrow. Is it Game Boy Advance or Nintendo?
It was
DS.
It was Game Boy Advance.
It was Aria of Sorrow for sure.
Okay, because then it was Symphony of the Night was the DS version.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I picked that up one time thinking that it was the same one that we played, and it definitely was similar. But I was like,
but the Advance was just the.
It was way fun. Yeah, the ending to that game, like, it was...
And 100%ing it and stuff, the exploration. It just blends so many, like, the RPG, like, items and weapons and stuff, getting gold, collecting abilities from what you kill. Yeah. It almost felt like Pokemon sometimes, because you were collecting... like farming a specific enemy for a specific ability that only they have.
Exactly. Especially like when you replay it, because you're like, I know which guy gives me the best weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Because I got
and you can like
awesome
speed run it the next time.
Yeah, and then you're just like, I'm going to go grind this guy.
I did not know that. Sword. That's crazy.
It was super fun. I loved that.
Dude, I've been a fan of that forever. Yeah. And they still haven't made... The last time they made a 2D Castlevania game was on the Nintendo DS. And they haven't made one since then.
Yeah, and I've been afraid to touch any of them ever since then because it was so perfect. I was like, I'm not going to taint this memory with something worse.
That's so cool. What a cool...
Wow. And so that's kind of like Game Boy era, tons of core memories.
Great mobile games, yeah.
And I've told you this before, but like I'll be walking around randomly. I'll be like shopping or something super random, and I'll have the Donkey Kong Country songs come to my head, like all of them. We're talking like from the very first level to the minecart levels. Yeah. I mean, like all of the ones that sounded like borderline horror songs. I don't know why some of those stuck, but they did. And anyway, that game, in my opinion, was the best game I ever picked up and played.
Was Donkey Kong Country?
Yeah. I've tried to go back and play it on emulator.
And it's just not the same.
I don't know if it's the controls are different or if I'm just awful at platforming now.
I have a Super Nintendo with all 3 of the Donkey Kong Country games, so I might have to let you take it for a test drive.
We're going to have to cut this podcast short.
Yeah, so see you later, guys.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of my favorite. I do want to play. That would be really fun to play again. Mm-hmm. But that, like, those games, there were so many different aspects of those kinds of games in that era that made them so great.
The diversity, we've already touched on the diversity, is how many different stuff they tried.
Yeah, and like when you have something that's that diverse, I feel like it's hard to point out this is the universal aspect or the universal item that makes games fantastic, especially with all the junk that's in the market today. It's like so hard to pinpoint this is what players want. Mm-hmm.
But especially since there's more gamers than ever before too.
Yeah, and there's
new, old, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's new systems, there's new tools, there's new graphics, there's like all of these new ways to build something. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, the thought that I had was like those games, because they were 2-dimensional, had a very limited array of what they could make great. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like there was like a couple of things that it boiled down to where I feel like there was a lot of like atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Halo games, I think, are the best at building atmosphere to date, and there are lots of people who are going to be like, Doom is really good too.
Doom, yeah.
And I've never played a Doom game.
The modern Doom is insane.
I've seen stuff like that, and
reboot, insane.
I'm not a big like I'm not big on violence. And
Yeah,
whatever.
like the gore is way over the top.
Way over the top. But I've watched videos of that,
and you feel like
I've been like, I want to play that game. I've never wanted to.
My masculinity requests.
Yeah, I just feel like I've never wanted to unleash such horrors as I've seen in that game, but I suddenly have the urge to massacre untold amounts of monsters.
And speaking of Aria of Sorrow on the Game Boy Advance, that had some atmosphere. If you ever played with the sound on, like the soundtrack added to the atmosphere. It was pixels on a screen, but the pixel art was so detailed for the time. You can just tell that every platform they put, like, everything was ornamental and, like, it wasn't just a plain platform. They really put detail into everything in that game.
Yeah, and kind
crazy.
of getting a little bit, like, deeper into stuff like that. I mean, like, when you think of Super Mario World or, like, any of those other platformers that were Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Everything was very colorful. The backgrounds were detailed. They had colorful, green hills and all these other things. All the enemies were different colors or whatever. But the thing that I feel like I liked more about Castlevania specifically is that they were very selective with where they put their colors.
Oh, 100%.
Because you walk in and
way more impactful.
Oh yeah, almost every room had the same border to it.
Yeah.
The same like gray stone.
Yeah.
But some rooms you have like stained glass in the background. Sometimes
their backgrounds are what was the most detailed. It blows me away, even going back to this day on an emulator or something, is the amount of detail in the background that some people probably don't even realize or look at or appreciate. Like you said, stained glass, like the outdoor scapes with like the clouds and like the rain and stuff. Crazy, man. Way ahead of its time.
Yeah, that was consistent across a lot of these games. Donkey Kong Country, if you look in the background,
crazy,
tons of different backgrounds, and they were sometimes even just a static background that would just scroll with you. But the layers that they added to it is what made it so much better.
That was like one of the first like 3D-ish kind of games, like 2.5D games, right?
You've got layers and everything like that, and anyway, I just think that like that atmosphere, the background, the soundtrack, like I touched on Donkey Kong. And controls, like unique ways to play or unique ways to move. Yeah. Like power-ups in Mario were like the start of that, where it's like, hey, we can modify the way that our character moves. You get the cape, you can fly across the whole map. Screw the way it was meant to be played. Like, I'm going to beat this thing.
Let's break it. Yeah.
And so, like, it became this exploration of atmosphere combined with how your character exists and moves through and what there is to discover and stuff like that. And then along the way, you're jumping on crocodiles and doing, beating gophers to death and whatever you do along the way in all these
Aside
games.
from the animal cruelty.
That's right. Vita did not like Donkey Kong Country. But the other one that I just thought of, Mega Man. I don't remember if it was...
dude, Mega Man. Yeah, Mega Man X. Mega Man Zero on the Game Boy Advance. That's what it is. Yes. Yeah, I can't believe I introduced you to these things. I forget about that.
And that's the thing. That's another one that when I think about side-scrolling shooters, it was way fun because it was tough. I mean, you could jump, you could hang on walls, you had like a
bullet hell. It was like a side-scrolling bullet hell, man. Yeah, with like crazy reaction times.
Yeah, it was like, it was really like it was the, I don't know how to, I might be blaspheming this game because I still haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but Enter the Gungeon, but if it were a side-scroller.
I think that's a pretty fair assumption, yeah.
Because that's kind of what it was. You had like these intro scenes, exit scenes when you finished that level. Yeah. You like knew what that level was accomplishing in the storyline, but then in the moment you're just like, all right, I just need to not get blasted by this guy for the 400th time. Man. It was fun. Yeah. And so anyway, from that point on, I played, that was the console that I had until I think I got Xbox 360 was the next one that I got.
Oh, what a great system to get, too.
iPod Touch, obviously. Like, that was where my mobile game... Once you had a phone that you could use to, like,
multitask everything, and it's always with you.
You can call friends, you can text friends, you can do whatever you want, but then you can also pull it out and play games on it.
What did you play the most, outside of the ones that I've already mentioned? Because those are the two that I remember that you showed me, but I'm sure you had others.
And that's the thing, like when I first got it, it stressed everybody out because I had 9 pages filled with games.
That's
and
the
apps.
Fun of the early app stores. Yes. It was like this untapped thing that you don't know what to expect, and you could just go download. It's like you you don't have to go to the game store. This is before you could just download games off your console. You had to buy them in the store. But with like a touchscreen, you can just, I want to try that out. Let me toss that in my library.
And it was like so much more affordable than everything that was out there.
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa could give you a $25 iTunes gift card, and you were like,
and you're set for a couple months.
I can get 15 games. That's a whole page. So like it grew really quickly. But I mean, there were a lot of free games too that were lots of fun. And just because it was so new, and touch controls,
and the gyro.
Yeah,
too.
gyro. Like all of these things were so new. It was like giving these developers a whole new tool to play with, and
it was like we experienced an era, like a change, a transition.
Yeah. They gave game developers, game developers are starving dogs. They gave them a bite of meat and they took their arm off. They were like, let me. Anyway, so like some of them are still around, which I'm astonished by. Like Jetpack Joyride.
That thing is. They just released a sequel. Apparently,
it was super fun. That was back in the day. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking like old school. I was watching a video the other day, and it reminded me paper toss, dude. Dude,
paper toss! I feel like that was like the universal high school game. Everyone played paper toss.
Yeah, you'd be like,
with the fan or whatever in the office, and you have to alter your throw.
It gets further, the fans start blowing harder. You have people who are like, dude, I mean, it got so hard so quickly. The first 5 were like baby mode.
And then by the 10, you're like over here like plotting the trajectory. You're doing math on a paper before you flick it.
You have a friend that comes to school the next day and he's like, dude, I got 1 bucket further. And everybody's immediately like, is this God? How? Anyways, that was super fun too. And I'm sure I'll think of more.
See, this is cool having your perspective because you're bringing up these like absolute classics that I've literally not thought of in forever.
I forgot about that one until the other day. I was watching a video. They made an app, and that was the inspiration for it. And I'm sure the guy that brought it up probably hasn't touched a video game in his life since then. So that was like the only thing he could think of. But I was just thinking about that, and I was like, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
But there are just a lot of classics that I'm sure we've forgotten over the years. And I think it is because there was a migration from like mobile gaming and the Game Boy Advance and putting it in your pocket to like, okay, now we can build way fancier tools like an iPod Touch.
We can try to emulate normal like the console games.
And graphics became better. You can create 3D games that don't run at 5 frames per second. You can, and so like I think most big game studios fled to console, and for good reason. I mean, it's the change from.
That's where the money was at the time. Yeah, like it was just an experimental time for mobile games. Like if you were a big game like Paper Toss or like Jetpack Joyride, you were making money, but the rest of them weren't.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, when there is something new, it immediately blows up. It's the industrial revolution of games.
Oh yeah,
and that's what consoles were too, because they said, "Oh, you think that's really cool? Well, here's all of these new systems that have incredible new graphics and 3D game designs and things that people have never tried before." And you have these classics that have now been run into the ground, unfortunately, with trying for sequels and all these different things. But I mean, like, Assassin's Creed, when that first came out,
that was nuts.
Was super
the mixture
fun.
Of history too, like
I am obsessed with Italy for that reason alone. Like the Ezio series.
Oh man.
Was
so good.
Super fun. There are some parts of it that I don't like about games like that, like the copy paste. Gameplay and
where it's the same stuff just with a little tweak here and there.
Because ADHD, a lot of that comes. There's perfectionism that comes along with that. So I'm like, okay, I can't leave. I beat the narrative of this game, but I'm not about to leave 87% of the world explored. Like, I'm gonna go do the rest.
And that's
of
probably why you liked Castlevania too, because the castle exploration and stuff.
Yeah.
And completionist aspect of it. Yeah. It's like staring you in the face every time you open up the map. 96%.
And then after you explored everything, you go fight the final boss, and then you're like, okay, now I know where all the good stuff is. Now I can play the way that you would imagine everybody else plays, which is just you turn it on, you try to find the final boss as fast as you can.
Exactly.
Just like the most direct route.
I think that's a genetic thing as well, because I constantly have to complete everything around the main quest, and then I complete the main quest at the very end.
Yeah, did you ever play Skyrim?
Skyrim? Oh man! So I'm gonna tell this story. And now I'm gonna add to the ADHD.
Sorry, we're jumping along, jumping ahead.
So with Skyrim, I was a huge fan of Oblivion. on my original Xbox. Oblivion was like the shiz.
Yeah.
And I like Game Informer back in the day, or like there were a few publications like IGN back in the day, and GameSpot, I think is what it's called, where they would write about Skyrim and stuff. And I was so excited. And as soon as I was able to pre-order, I pre-ordered at GameStop. And I don't know how I got away with it because it was a rated M game. I don't know how I did it because I was like 16 at the time, maybe. I don't know. And I pre-ordered it, but my dad had a rule where there was no rated M games as long as I lived in his household. And somehow, so I'd never been to a midnight release of a game ever. And me and a couple of my nerdy friends were like, oh, we're going to go to the midnight release of this. I had it all planned out. Everything was ready to go. The day before, my dad somehow figured out that Skyrim was a rated M game. He walked me into GameStop, made me unpre-order the game. I missed out on going to the midnight release and playing the game. And ever since then, I have never played a second of Skyrim. Because it almost like ruined me. I was like, I just was too excited for it. I was like, the opportunity passed and went, and it's too much of a painful spot. So I have trauma associated with Skyrim.
Well, you're welcome for bringing that back up. Yeah. Glad I could be a part of that. Now I feel a bit bad bringing this up. But when you said like completing all the side quests before you complete the main quest. No, I mean, I think this is everybody. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is like a quirk thing. But I hate going into boss fights in games unprepared and realizing that it's either going to be an extreme struggle or that there's no way that I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And so I tend on the side of like, I'd rather
be super OP.
Way over prepared and walk up and just absolutely obliterate them.
Because that's part of the fun too.
Yeah, you know, everybody wants to feel powerful when you're playing games. Nobody wants to walk in and be like, okay, I've got a fork, a spoon, and I lost my shirt apparently at some point. Well, let's just fight that dragon, I guess. Like, you want to feel prepared and stuff. And so in Skyrim, like when you said, you know, you have to do all the side quests and stuff, I don't think I played a single second of the main quest line until I had explored everything and I could not find anything else to do. I walked around the
impressive.
map,
it's a big game, dude.
I was like, okay, I know I've got the main storyline, but is there anything else that I can do? And then I went and I played it, and then I was like, okay, that's fun. And then I started over again and was like, okay, now how can I break the game? And that was lots of fun to try.
And I feel like that's a kind of a golden era of like semi-modern gaming, like when the graphics were getting bigger, the games were getting bigger. Like Skyrim showed what a good open world game could be, because I feel like that's pretty much as good as it gets. Like there's a reason why it's still being remade. Well, obviously they want to make more money off of the same game a million times, but like people still keep buying it because it's Skyrim.
And I mean, the amount of work that went into it was astronomical, but they also weren't like, they didn't announce that Skyrim was coming out 5 years before it was ready. They like knew to wait there. You wait your time, you do your time, you put in the work, and if you've done it well and you know what you're making and you stay true to that, like you're not going to not be successful.
Oh yeah.
And so like anyway, we'll get into more open world stuff later because we've already touched on.
Yeah.
I feel like there's the anticipation is mounting for when we just open up and absolutely it's open world. But I think that's what people are losing sight of nowadays is they're trying to make things that are so inclusive that they are exclusive of everything fun. Yeah. And we were kind of talking before the podcast, like it's a jack of all trades and a master of one. They just want to stick everything that's been fun in past games into the same game to see if they can get the widest audience possible. But that's not what makes a loyal following or makes it a cult classic, so to speak. Yeah, and that's like there are some games that I'd die for before I let somebody disrespect. Like you just
you have to say at least one of them.
Some random guy in the streets, I hear him. I mean, we're talking about like absolutely like. I mean, I think it would have to be Donkey Kong Country. Like that game, I cannot. The heart attack that I had when I got to the final level and had played that final boss fight. I went back to previous boss fight, like started a whole new file because I could not beat the final level.
Oh man,
and so I had
that game's tough as nails.
It is rough, but when I finally beat him, and I remember it because I was on a car trip with my family. I think we were driving to Arizona for Thanksgiving or something, and I was in the very back seat, and I've been playing it for like 4 hours. I finally beat him, and I was like, yes! I was just so happy. And the credits start rolling, and I had like the old like flashback moment. The Game Boy headphones that came with it.
Oh, no way, with the special jack or whatever?
You got like the rebate card that you filled out and mailed in.
Yeah.
The ones that like clipped over your ears. Like we're talking way
Paint
old.
the picture.
Yeah, it hurt my ears every time, but it was like the experience. Anyway, I had those in, and I was like, I like leaned back and looked towards the roof of the car and was just like, oh, thank you. It was so satisfying.
A spiritual moment.
And then the credits stop rolling, and you hear something going on, and so I look back down, and he gets back up, and you could fertilize the world with the amount of poop that I had in my pants at that. It was so, like, I was like ruined.
And that's
so
not a
many
spoiler
ways over.
because this game is years upon years. If you haven't played it yet, it's your fault.
Yeah, if you haven't played it yet, you've probably played something else that scared you just as bad. But this, I mean, that was like probably why it's such a core memory. Just that.
Oh, and why it's one of your favorites of all time.
Speaking of trauma, it's just like I've never been so scared in my life. Where I was like reaching to grab my console, like classic Butterfingers, like it falls. I was so panicked. And then once I realized that, I mean, the satisfaction wasn't like wasted because I was like, "There's more."
Yeah. I triumphed this. Now it's time to triumph this.
And he's got totally new moves, and so it became like, okay, now I've beaten this. This could be blasphemous. It was the original Dark Souls, where you're like, okay, I just beat the first boss in the game that just has kicked my butt repeatedly for hours, and there's more or whatever. That was like my Dark Souls. I've never played Dark Souls or anything like that because that does not appeal to me.
Yeah.
Probably because of the trauma, but but that was like I see the appeal.
This
of it.
is a therapy session, and you guys are just listening in.
How does that make you feel? Hold on, I gotta get some tissues. Is there allergies? Anyway, that's good stuff. But that, kind of like those were moments that you remember, and you remember them because of how unique or how they did something right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of games today that try to do everything right. Mm-hmm. But in doing that, like you said, jack of all trades, master of none. If you reach for everything, you'll end up dropping everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of like the migration from the golden era to consoles and everything kind of, I feel like, took all of the development with them. And I feel like mobile gaming became this haven for arcade style games.
Yeah, like high score chasers only.
Yeah.
Which,
like
I mean, those still have a strength in and of themselves, but then they kind of painted themselves into a corner with it.
Yeah, I mean, you think like, what was it, Coin Dozer or whatever?
Coin Dozer, yeah.
It was just like the most pointless game in the world, but I loved it. I could not get enough of it. Where I was just like, I got to push all the stuff off the edge.
But then that stereotype just solidifies, where it's just like, oh, they're just simple games with ads.
Yeah, and then these people start looking at it, and they're like, this game is so easy to make, and it's super Therefore, we can take this same concept and magnify it times 1,000. Yeah, make 1 million clones of it. Start the Clone Wars, which is essentially what I feel like happened. Because, listen, I know that people who are listening to this, I know that we're not clones, but there are millions of clones out there, right? Like, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Because, not talking about the games either, like people. Because who in the world are mobile games advertising to, making games for? Like, honestly, it's either like 6-month-olds with tablets.
Or leapfrog.
Yeah, I mean, you got like iPad, what is it? iPad kids in Walmart, coughing on his hands, sneezing into it, whatever. Like, what in the world are all of the top games in there? It's all
that duplicated stuff. Yeah,
I feel insulted opening the App Store
and then seeing the top free games.
Yes, because
it's
I'm
always the same trash.
What if we? Okay, and I understand. Like, there's a young generation. People have devices in their hands before we were, and whatever. So, like, maybe it's our generation. Like, shame on us for giving kids tablets that young.
This tablet raised my child.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there are lots of parents that are just like, "Oh, what's that? You're screaming and crying. Here, take this. I don't want to deal with it."
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Or it's like the easiest thing to get them to be quiet. And I understand to some extent, but like, I mean, it really has ruined mobile gaming market in a lot of ways. There are still some great games out there that can. Okay. Oh, I just thought of another classic, Fruit Ninja.
Oh wow, yeah.
What
yeah.
a classic! That
what
was
an
like
absolute classic. Yeah. That was like the riding the bus in sports in high school. That was the game. Everyone competed for the highest. We would pass one iPad around.
Oh yeah.
And we'd see who could get the highest score.
It was like the simplest concept to just like make you feel like you're really cool because you can chop fruit in all these different ways, and you're doing all these like what you imagine are samurai sword different angles or whatever,
and then unlocking the new cosmetic slices.
That was another one of those games where people were like, this is really easy to recreate, and now there's just so much garbage because mobile gaming was affordable. It was like $3, $4. I don't think I've ever paid more. I think I paid $20 for a mobile game once.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Which one was it?
It's not on the App Store anymore, and I'm so sad.
I might know.
I think I showed it to you. Infinity Blade.
Oh my gosh, everyone's sad. The whole the hardcore mobile gamers. Like on Reddit, that's one of the main things they bring up is that it was a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
And slowly it got more and more monetized, but the first and second I heard I never experienced them in their glory days, but...
The first Infinity Blade game that I played changed the way that I looked at mobile game. It raised the standard so far above what...
And that was made by Epic Games, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that's Epic Games, like the Fortnite developers.
I remember watching a video on it. I think that the guy who came up with the idea originally, maybe Epic Games got involved later on, but I mean, it was an idea that he had like on his own, and they did motion capture for the character moves and like all these different things. And it was just so different from what every other game was doing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And graphics-wise...
The graphics were nuts.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I was like, this is on an iPod Touch? Like, it was console quality.
Yeah, I mean...
If not better, honestly.
Granted, you needed, like, the Ghostbusters backpack to power your phone when you played that thing. Because...
With the whole cooling system.
Oh, yeah. You needed a nuclear reactor on your back because that drained your battery.
I'm ready to get my 15 minutes of Infinity Blade in.
They should have just partnered with like the battery case companies like Mophie or whatever it was.
Hey, I got a way that you guys can make a lot of money.
Our next game's about to drop. Make sure you've got your best case. We'll give a discount code. Like that's honestly, congratulations, you beat Infinity Blade. Now you can go play Infinity Blade 2, sponsored by Mophie. Like, honestly, would have been the greatest marketing tactic. But that game was, in my mind, like the peak of what mobile gaming was.
Because it offered an experience that you couldn't have on any other gaming platform, period.
And once I played I took a risk on the first one, and as soon as I played it, any of the next ones that came out, I was like, I have to play it because I know that it's phenomenal. They know what we like, what we want in a game. That was another game that I had a heart attack about because you beat the final boss finally, which is just the first time you play it, you're like, there's no way. There's no way I'm ever going to... And then you're like, wait a second, there's more stuff that you can do every time you go through. Then you find the real final boss. And
man.
That was like another Castlevania moment where I was like, oh, what an ending. Anyway, that was like fun. And again, the progress that you get through that. Same thing as Castlevania. You collect more equipment, you feel better, you feel stronger. Like that progression is what everybody likes in a game. And that Infinity Blade series did it phenomenally.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's one series that I haven't read about or heard about in a long time.
Yeah, and if I don't know who's listening to this podcast, but if you know anybody that could even remotely know Infinity Blade developers, please forward this to them.
It's a small mobile developers and like the network that it has. It's smaller than you think.
Yeah,
everyone knows everybody and. Mobile developers are a lot easier to contact than pretty much anyone else, to be honest. Yeah.
This is your assignment. Find where he lives. Post it online.
YouTube takes the video, this video down.
We need to find this man. No, but seriously though, like that was a golden era game, like top quality.
Great example.
That was similar to what was, obviously different gameplay, different whatever, but it had very much the feelings
quality,
of what console games were putting out at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of led to the decline of the mobile marketing era or mobile gaming era where I didn't want to pay for games because I was like,
most of this is much trash,
garbage,
I've experienced the one good series or whatever, and there's other ones. It's just they're buried under all of these clones and copies that we've been talking about.
And I mean, I won't get another ADHD moment. I won't get off on Apple on this, but I think that
The vetting process for the App Store needs to be better.
The App Store is too much of a monopoly and is too restrictive on allowing mobile gamers other options, or mobile developers other options.
Yeah.
Steam is fantastic because you can buy a game, and if you hate it, you can return it. And they, like, I mean, under 2 hours of gameplay, and like no questions asked, here you go, here's your money back.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that gives me the confidence to be like, you know, I don't know if I'd spend $20 on this any
That's
other
a good
time.
point. I know they have a refund system, but I know that they tally how many times you do refund, and they're a lot more picky with the reasons too. Like if you're just like, well, I didn't enjoy it, they'll like refund it once, but if that happens again within a certain time frame, they're like, nah, you have to stick with it.
Well, and again, like the developer is the one that hurts from that because
Exactly.
they're the ones, you know, Apple sees, hey, all these people are refunding your game, and then the crackdown comes on the developer at the end of it. Whereas the alternative is, and this is how most games are nowadays, that it's free to download, and then there's in-app purchases, which usually, sometimes I've seen games where you try to download it, and then you open it up, and it's like, here, yeah, you got to buy the game before you can play anything. And I'm like, what's the point of having me download it then?
Just to freaking give you a nice little buff of download statistics.
Clicking the download button is, probably, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but that's like the thing that it's fueled microtransactions. Because everything was so cheap and people were spending money on these games, you start, you know, moving into, if somebody's willing to spend 99 cents to download this game, somebody's got to be...
We can repeatedly have them do that with one game.
Yeah, you make the game the same thing, same simplistic whatever. You make it frustrating or like have a ceiling. You can break that ceiling for 99 cents, but then you just continue to need to break that ceiling.
It's extending the finish line over and over again.
Yeah, and it's...
Or stuff it full of ads. Because a lot of people, I feel nowadays, people refuse to pay money on games now.
Yes.
It's
And
like a thing now,
especially
on mobile.
If you're an advertiser or if you're a mobile developer or you're just anybody in a position, what are you doing with these advertisements? It is an embarrassment to be alive. Seeing some
There's
of this...
compilations of mobile game advertisements because they're so outrageous.
I mean,
and I think that's why they make them outrageous at this point. Is because we're talking about it right now.
Well, and I don't even know...
But I don't even remember the games that they were advertising for.
Yeah, I mean...
Raid Shadow Legends, sponsored by Raid... No, I'm just kidding. I wish. Jeez. Jeez,
Thanks
please.
for the sponsor of this video. I mean, honestly, sponsorships are huge and things like that. And games, you know, whether or not you like a game, whether it's your cup of tea, whatever. But, like, the advertisements that are going on right now, I feel like borderline are, like...
illegal.
What's the thing where they false advertisement?
100%. Yeah,
they send an advertisement.
They rip videos from like other games.
Well, and they prey on
the gullible.
I want to say that it's little kids. Like I don't. If you're listening to this and you fall in prey, like you know, maybe we can talk after this is over. We can get you some help.
Comment section down below.
But they prey on the idea that you watch somebody doing something just astronomically stupid.
Yeah.
And that you're like, I can do that better, and so they want you to download the game and give it a
so
shot.
true.
But it has nothing to do with the actual
gameplay. Yeah,
I mean, it's like
the little key pulling like puzzle thing where
it would be like if they had an advertisement for Game of Thrones, but they only used Lord of the Rings like Gimli scenes as the advertisement. And you're like, dude, how stupid is it? You know, there's a little short guy that's running. I can run faster than that, or like I don't know, whatever. And then you get in there and you're like, this has nothing to do with what was actually
false advertising.
Yeah,
100%.
and then you uninstall it, but because they have the download statistics, and you probably watched at least one ad while you had it downloaded, they still make money off of it.
Yeah.
So I think part of that is the fault of the App Store. Either you have to allow developers to have payment methods that don't go directly
only through
Apple,
them.
or we just need to everybody abandon Apple, everybody get out, everybody run.
Well, did you hear about Fortnite Mobile?
Yes.
Yeah, so that Epic Games had a problem with that as well. And I think it's an overarching, like, it's not even just the App Store. It's very common practice with the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store. They all take the same cut. They all have a monopoly, especially on consoles. PC, you can kind of get around these monopolies a lot better.
Yeah, and to some extent, I understand these like games that have, if you develop the hardware, then I understand that you obviously have some rights over what you're going to allow.
You deserve your cut.
Yeah, you deserve your cut. But again, if we're talking about that, deserving your cut is harming
Yeah.
the people who are developing or who are, because without games, console's a piece of garbage. Doesn't do anything. Just like a phone. If you don't have a charger, if you don't have electricity, or the electric grid doesn't exist, half of our life is garbage. It's just junk. And so, like, to that extent, I feel like everybody's been so restrictive, and it's come down on the developers' heads, and that sucks because, and maybe we'll use this as the transition into, but like modern games or like where we're at today.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the right way to. That's the right.
That's the segue.
Yeah, that is the segue into like, what are we doing? I don't know if this is like, I don't know where the disconnect is happening, but something needs to change.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's the only modern games, like modern AAA games that I really enjoy, and even then it's kind of hit and miss, have been the PlayStation exclusives. I think they've done really. God of War was one of the best AAA experiences I've ever had in my life. But and then Horizon Zero Dawn, I really like that one too. But like outside of those, I can't think of any AAA games that were super memorable outside of like a multiplayer space or a PvP space. But that's probably because of the socialization aspect of it and not because of the game itself.
Yeah, and I think that was, I mean, the golden era of consoles. I've guys laughing over here.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Thought of something that I'm going to drop eventually.
Okay.
But that's going to have multiple angry hordes descending upon. But the like golden era of consoles was the couch co-op.
Oh yeah.
And Halo, I love Halo. I know that there's a lot of people who have, and I even have some issues with their storyline and how they've tried to develop the game and all these different things. But Halo is, in my mind, the golden standard. Like, you know, talking like Halo 2, Halo 3. Linear game design, storytelling.
And a way to play it in multiple different ways.
Exactly.
Alone, multiplayer online, or co-op.
Exactly.
Couch co-op.
There's freedom within the boundaries that they've set. And those boundaries don't limit your ability to have fun, but they protect you from... Or they protect the...
From a mediocre experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more curated.
Yeah, they know when you're a developer or when you're a writer or whatever you are, you know what's fun, what's interesting, what's whatever, and if it's not, then people won't buy it, and that's capitalism. True. Hallelujah. But at the end of the day, like, you have to be able to know that you're allowed to put restrictions on it, and if people don't like it, you don't have to pander to people who don't like it. Like, you don't ever advertise to people who hate you no matter what. You go to people who love what you do and then try to market to the people who are open to experimenting with it. Yeah. And Halo did that so well with their linear game design and their storytelling, and
they knew who their player base was and what they liked about it.
Yeah.
During the first trilogy. Yeah.
And I feel like any game that has gone open world has gone open world because of, there are some games that have done it very well. Breath of the Wild did open world. Oh yeah. Very, very, very well done. But they lose sight of the fact that open world is meant to give you more freedom. Yeah. But they think it means give you all of the freedom.
Yeah, like all the freedom and just load it full of quests and little to-do lists and stuff like that. And that doesn't necessarily add to the fun. Yeah. Unless the storylines, if you're in it for the storyline.
Yeah. And there's a reason that no matter what you buy, it comes with instructions that tell you as if you were a caveman how to operate it. Yeah. Because you have to assume that everybody and anybody who touches anything is going to make a mistake that's unique at some point. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I feel like these open world games are, is they're giving you incredible amounts of work and content and all of this awesome open world experience, but they're giving it to buffoons. Because that's in essence what we are, is if we're given an open world and all of these tools, we're going to try to find ways to break it. That's like part of the fun of, it is very fun to go out and feel powerful and do all these things, but once you've accomplished that, like half the fun of Halo Couch Co-op was, okay, we've beaten the campaign.
Now let's beat it in the weirdest way possible.
Let's do legendary, but we don't use any vehicles. No nades. Yeah, you can only you can't swap to no plasma grenades. Like, you find different ways to restrict yourself to make it more difficult and more enjoyable. And that's like when you have an open world, you're like, okay, I've beaten this aspect of it. Do I want to run halfway across the map to revisit it, or like I don't know. I just think that they give too much freedom,
Mm-hmm.
They give you the vehicle, but then it's kind of on your own to figure out what happens if something goes wrong. You're just like, all right, have fun, go for it. And I just don't think that that's like, if that is the future of gaming, then like, whew.
And I think it's more easily, like when you're creating an open world game, at least initially, they build all the assets for it, and then they can literally just reconfigure those assets and make a sequel or another product. Like modern gaming has turned into, how often can we beat this franchise to death till it's unrecognizable? Whatever makes the most consistent and the most money in general, and it's all about sequels. You rarely see new franchises such as Halo, like or like even the God of War game that I just mentioned. That's based off of an already established franchise in the golden era of gaming. You don't see new franchises popping up out of the blue anymore, and it's because it's more of a gamble. It's all about what makes the most money and what's the safest bet.
Yeah, and once you have one, I mean, it is risky to build something new and unique, or to like take a chance on something. And if you take a chance and that is successful, I feel like people guard that success and are much less willing or likely to risk it all again. Because once if you play the lottery and you win, how often are you going to keep buying lottery tickets? And so in a lot of ways, these big studios, I feel like they, like you said, they're cash cows, where they just want whatever's going to bring the cash in. And that's what microtransactions are. And it has ruined the mobile gaming experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you can't reliably get microtransactions, which is a horrible business platform for like longevity and just overall health of the gaming industry, then you just shove advertisements down people's throats and all of these different things.
And that further garnered the negative stereotype for mobile gaming as a whole, is that they're just there for the monetization. Like they're simple games with tons, and that's why you left. Yeah.
It's overly simplistic games that can feed on the poor souls that feel the compulsion to succeed in something that's just not worth forking the money out for.
Have you seen Apple Arcade? Have you looked into it at all? Like their subscription service?
I saw before in between some of these abysmal advertisements, I have seen some advertisements for the Apple Arcade, and I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's a free trial, because if I get into it and I do like it, I have an iPhone right now. It's the last iPhone I'm ever going to have. I'm not patronizing.
Yeah.
Apple's lost my business.
We've had a podcast episode about Apple versus Android for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think it's going to move from, eventually, somehow, someone will build a universal software.
That everyone uses.
Open source software. Anyway, so long story, I mean, I didn't want to get into it because if I do like it, I don't want to give Apple money. And if I risk it and I don't like it, then why would I put myself through that experience?
The reason I bring that up is I feel like that was the last chance to break the negative stereotype, because I thought it was because they're very generous towards these developers that are making games specifically for the service. Yeah. And it started out really strong lineup of really good games, but then everything came down to a trickle. They didn't have enough of an influx of new games to experience and a reason to subscribe. But I feel like that was the last chance to really put good mobile games at the forefront, because mobile games have progressively been getting better and better, and the quality better and better, and the ideas better and better. It's buried under those clothes yet again. So what would your solution be, do you think, to get you back into mobile gaming as a whole? Or like, have you had a game? I know you told me about a game that kind of got you back into it. What made you get back into that game?
That's a lot of good questions. And
sorry, I just berated you with it.
That's the barrage.
Hey, answer.
Yeah, just bludgeon me with a few more of them here in a second, because I'm going to forget half of them.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that brought me back is I had either exhausted what I thought was the games that were interesting to me in other areas, and so I was looking back into. Some of it was I was looking at older games, like remembering the golden days, and wondering if there's anything that's out on the store still, or if there are things that are like it, which is why I found out that Infinity Blade isn't on the phone anymore, because that was the one where I went, I want to go find something that I loved. And kind of like on the back of that, when I opened it up and looked at like the apps that are on the front page, and even some of the apps that were recommended based on the stuff I've played in the past, I was just like, these look like they're geared for like 7-year-olds. And I don't know how this would work. I mean, they give an age rating on a lot of those games, and I don't know if that's the right solution, because if you say, okay, there's going to be an App Store kids section for kids that are under this age, I think that developers that are making all of these games and all these advertisements that are an embarrassment to the human race would just say, oh, wow, now it's suddenly for 7-year-olds and not just 6 and under.
Yeah.
You know, and so it is a good question on what you can do about it. I mean, really, I think it comes down to enabling developers to make money and keep more of the money that they make, so that the Apple Store or the App Store doesn't go into, you know, dust in the wind. Because
allows them to take more chances and utilize more ideas that are outside of the most popular.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I thought about, and again, I don't know if anybody will ever take this and make it into something, but the thing is, downloading the games, or everything that everything that people pay on the Apple Store, Apple takes a percentage of.
Yeah.
And so if Apple still wants to take their cut, or they're afraid that if they decrease the portion they take or whatever, all you have to do is just tell developers, hey, if you want to put apps on our App Store, there's a free option, which means we take a certain cut. Or if you want to pay a certain amount per month that your apps are on the store, you can have payments that go directly to you. Now, people, when they have in-app purchases, can decide, okay, our games are going to have $5 purchases of the whole game, unrestricted. You give us the money now and you can have the game and go play it. And Apple still gets a monthly subscription, which means that games that are really popular and get lots of people to it, developers are rewarded very generously. And Apple Store still gets their monthly cut that keeps the cash cow alive. And stuff like that. Because Apple's really not profiting on their hard products as much anymore. I mean, everybody's buying new things and new devices and whatever, but the last like 14 iPhones have not had super new features or anything crazy where you're like, whoa, that's next generation. And so their software is where
the money's going to have to be made.
And if they are looking at subscription-based stuff, instead of making their own brand of subscription stuff, empower developers and encourage them to make things that are great, and people will come to where you are. You know, if you make a product that people enjoy, they're going to pay for it. That's how capitalism works. And so, I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, but empower the developers, and the gaming community will find you. And that's kind of what happened when I was looking. I think you've probably...
Card Crusade is what it was, right?
Yeah.
That you sent me?
It was super fun because I had never seen it. I've been looking at some like more 8-bit adventure style games.
There's a lot of great ones, man.
Yeah, and
Shattered Pixel Dungeon.
I looked at a whole bunch of ones that you'd done videos on. I was like, dude, this is all... It reminded me of some of them that I had... Void Tyrant does one of them. That's a great example. Yeah. Because it's super unique. It's...
really cool ideas thrown into one game.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the pacing of it.
Which is a very fair critique, to be honest.
I mean, it takes so long just to do a single fight. But then getting all the way through to the end of a single run, I mean, I just don't have the time to invest in that for the reward at the end of it. But that was one of those games where they have all of these purchases in app that allow you to unlock new stuff or new materials. And I was like, I would rather pay...
one price,
a
premium experience. That's what they call it.
Like $5 for this to have, a speed up option, or to have like the full thing unlocked and get all of the rewards and be able to play the game at my leisure. Here, take your money. Thank you for making the game. Now let me go play it. Instead of hey, do you want to make your life a little bit easier, like quality of life upgrade? Here's a thing for $3. I'm like, I don't want to spend my money on quality of life. If I have to pay money to make my life better playing your game, you're doing something wrong.
And I feel like a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, as well as like our members, like mobile gamers that go out of their way to participate in discussions about mobile games, I feel like they think very similar to you, where I'd rather pay, okay, you have ads in your game and it's free to download, and you have one purchase and the only microtransaction is to remove the ads. That's fair. Okay, I'm paying for the full experience then without the ads. I'll gladly do that. Or with the price tag, or a demo version, like you said, where you download it, it allows you to play and try out the game, and then you unlock the full game through an in-app purchase after a certain amount of time. And those are the three most popular, and I think the most fair monetization models there are. Or a free game, which gives you a ton of content up front, but if you want another class, so to speak, to play as, then that class has 99 cents. And if you want a
Yeah.
further class, I don't mind that either. That is kind of straying into multiple microtransactions for the sake of microtransactions. But if it's done right, it still feels right.
Yeah, and microtransactions should be a way to let people to take risks without feeling like if you buy the thing up front and you don't like it, then you've just wasted your money or you have to go for a refund or whatever it is.
Definitely.
Because nobody likes wasting their time trying to undo a decision that you hated.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, I can try the game out, and like you said, first, if I want to unlock the rest of the story mode, that's $2.
Yeah.
And there's 3 different classes that you can unlock after you've bought that initial story
Yeah.
mode. Or if you just want to have it all ready to go, boom, here's the whole
Exactly.
package for $5.
Yeah.
That is a huge, huge difference between opening the app and the very first thing you see is loading screen and then loading a 30-minute unskippable ad for you. And you're like, what? Ugh.
And
But-
do you think so price is another thing too.
Yeah.
You paid $20 for Infinity Blade, right? Or you said?
I think
it was quite a bit for the time.
I think it was sometime, but it was somewhere between $10 and $20.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 10, maybe 15.
And back then, that's like the highest.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like games are cheaper on the App Store because of the stereotype behind mobile games in general? Do you think people could eventually actually pay higher prices if the quality overall and quantity was better?
Yeah, and that's everybody put on your big boy pants because we're going to business school. ADHD moment. This is what I studied in school is business stuff, and something that was mind blowing to me, and probably everybody knows at this point is nobody charges for a product based on what it's actually worth.
Yeah.
People charge based on what the perceived value of that product
Exactly.
is.
What people are willing to pay
Yeah.
for it on a regular basis.
Because you can have off-brand, there's tons of off-brand stuff, and it can be literally identical. But if people perceive one brand as being more valuable than another, they'll fork over tons of extra cash just for that same item built by somebody else.
He's spitting. He's spitting some wisdom.
And that's the same thing I feel like from game developers. I would take huge risks and pay twice as much money for an app from a developer that I've played and I know what to expect from them than taking a risk on somebody for the first time. But at the same time, like those previews, when you open up the app store and you start scrolling through the app and you see the screenshots from gameplay and even just looking at the reviews down below, like the first few that they show you, that's the live or die for me.
Oh, yeah.
That's whether or not I even consider buying, is if I look at the screenshots.
Don't judge a book by its cover, but let's all be honest.
no,
the cover
let's
matters.
Beat the hell out of the cover. Like, I'm talking, like, if it looks bad, I'm like, whoa, what? No, not even.
Even the app icon, dude. The app icon is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that's what you're up against, because at this point, if I download it, it's going to be a waste of time unless I have some other hope or some other belief that it's worth my time. My time is worth money, and that's everybody's time is worth money. And so if you're not paying for the app, you're paying for the time that you spend looking for a good game, which is super demoralizing, because I'm like, I've looked through the App Store for 2 hours and I have 3 new games.
Oh, yeah.
I opened all 3 of them and immediately installed 2.
Yeah.
And like, it's just so selective because, again, the perceived value of these games is this is done quickly, cheaply. It's a money grab. I don't want to play that.
And that's the irony of this whole discussion is my channel would not exist if the App Store was running how it should be ran. Because I'm the dude who shovels through all of the shovelware to get to the good stuff, or at least the stuff that I think can be enjoyable for certain people.
Yeah.
And I would literally not have any content to make at that point, other than reviews.
I think the reviews and I think like pointing out which games are great, that's always been
A thing in gaming, period.
Yeah, I mean, if you find something cool, that's how games are shared, is word of mouth. I think what it ideally would be is that you're like a prophet and you're like, I have foreseen, and you're like, developers are reaching out to you like, hey, we've done this in the past and this has gotten really high marks and other things like that. We're able to be profitable. We only need this many people to download for us to make our money back or whatever. And then they're able to portray it to you like, hey, because of that, take a look at it and, try it out, share videos with people. I think people who do reviews and who sift through the junk, you don't want to be sifting through the junk. You want to be playing fun games and showing it to people.
Exactly.
And like, this is way cool. Look at this. Look at how stupid this is. Halo style.
Yeah.
Got a whole bunch of people on a warthog. We all jumped out midair, did something stupid, crazy, whatever. It was super fun, couch co-op style.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot more fun to have developers being like, hey, this game is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play it with another content developer and like join audiences. Things like that are what I think, like you said, that we're here by necessity, not by like volunteer. We're like, okay, something has to be done about it. But the gaming community knows what they want, but is also the most inconsistent voice in the history of
100%.
Where we're like, we want this and that, and then when it comes out,
you can't please everybody.
What are you doing? You did exactly what we asked. Are you stupid? Like,
yeah.
And that's where I think it needs to become a thing. Like, honestly, if what anybody says resonates with you, like where you put your money is where things develop. Amazon is enormous and will not change until people stop using Amazon services,
myself included.
and so I understand where people are like, Jeff Bezos is filthy stinking rich, he should be spending his money on all these things. Like, that's fine, but if you're still using Amazon to buy everything, like, the hypocrisy is crazy. Like, here, take my money, but why do you have so much? And I think if we change that mentality of like,
and apply it to the App Store, where you're only spending money on the infinity blades of the App Store.
Games in general, the amount of people, if honestly though, like this is dead serious, if you liked Cyberpunk 76 when it came out, and was it 76?
I think it is. Oh, Cyberpunk.
I don't remember. 20 something.
2077 or something? I don't know.
Yeah, 77 or something like that. I think I was thinking Fallout 76.
Yeah.
But I didn't even touch.
That game was trash.
They're all, I mean, if a game, like content creator to game developer has let you down in the last 5 years, and you still bought their game or like continue to buy their next release, like they're going to continue to hype it up, they're going to continue to disappoint. Like, something's got to change. So if you're disappointed with something, if you do still want to buy it, give it several months before you invest, because what you'll see happening is people panicking at initial numbers, and that is where I think we'll start to see change finally come about. It's not a matter of...
And what's scary is that ever going to happen? Are people actually... Because this is the norm. Like, we're talking about, like, the origins of mobile gaming and gaming as a whole. We remember how things are supposed to be or normally are. We sound so old right now. But now, this is all of these kids that are growing up know. And so this is the norm. Like, they don't even know what to... Like, I just pre-ordered this game. Yeah. Because that's the normal thing. It's not...
I mean, back in the day, when you would go to... Digitalization has been great, but it also means that everything is available immediately.
Exactly.
Which means nobody wants to be patient. Because back in the day, Donkey Kong Country probably sat on the shelf for like 8 years before I even knew it existed. And then I picked it up and discovered something fantastic.
Yeah.
Nowadays... The second that
you can research anything, you can search the store and know every title that exists, will exist, or has existed.
The second that something new comes out, the servers are crashing because of how many people are buying it, downloading it, and running to be the first person to beat it. And that's super fun to do and whatnot. But I mean, if they've been letting us down, if there's a specific game company that's been letting you down,
it's a perfect example.
Yeah, it's like, stop giving them your money.
And people buy it anyways. Like, they talk so much trash about the installment, and then they're like, this next one's going to be better. Yeah. This is going to be the one. Yeah. And I was part of that, because Call of Duty was the game I've always been naturally good at. Like, I was always just smacking up everybody. Yeah. And I was like, I have a lot of fun doing it. But then I eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I've literally gone through this. Oh, this game sucks. It's not the same. For 3 years now, what am I doing? Yeah. And I just stopped. Yeah. And that's when I found Apex, but now I'm hopelessly addicted to Apex. But that's besides the point. Another ADHD tangent.
This is another video. We need to get him therapy for Apex.
It's true.
We'll sit down and talk about what trauma did Skyrim do this to you.
Yeah. Oh, the wraparound. That was perfect. But we've already literally hit everything at this point. But is there hope? That's kind of we're kind of been on a negative tangent. But do you think that mobile gaming has a chance to improve in the future? What do you think mobile gaming is going to be in the future?
Yeah,
because we've talked a little bit before the podcast, but
yeah, and I mean we have been just like absolutely railing on every mainstream company, so.
because they still make great stuff.
They
It's just
do,
a majority of it is not.
Well,
Indie games are the future.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I think we talked about this before, but the indie games. Think of any game that surprised in the last 10 years, and it's from a company where that game was like their first, usually.
Yeah, they were putting their livelihood on this game.
And again, if I say something blasphemous, again, I'm not an expert in this field. So there's a chance I'm about to say some games that were absolutely not created by indie developers.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, all of the games that went, Undertale.
Oh, yeah.
Even like games like Hades or
Oh, yeah.
all of these other games that are not $60 games off the shelf for the console.
They're double A or under, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just fantastic because they know and understand what they're trying to be true to, and they don't try to be the jack of all trades. You don't have, if you're a platformer, why on earth would you care about like hitboxes?
Yeah.
In like a shooting sequence, like no.
Yeah.
If you're Call of Duty, sure, do Call of Duty, be you. But if you're platformer, do you and be confident in that, because whether or not everybody loves you, if you have that loyal following or that loyal group, you can guarantee a certain amount of income. You can guarantee safety in a certain realm, and you can kind of determine, hey, this is where we have to be profitable.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
A healthy amount of greed. That's basically what it is.
Exactly.
We can get this much money from people who are actually going to enjoy this type of game, and we should plan on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
that's all it comes down to.
That's what I've seen in a lot of these mobile games that I saw on your channel, where there's a lot of stuff out there that is absolutely buried and not given the recognition that it deserves and things like that. And once those games start becoming more and more prominent, as long as those developers understand, like, I mean, ask for feedback. That's huge. If you're a developer,
there's a thing called test flight on the phone now, which is a way that developers can have people test their games for free, basically. And it's becoming a way bigger thing now. Yeah.
And I mean, if you reach out to people and you just say, hey, we want to know what you love, not just like rate it 5 stars, do you like this game or not? Like, like genuine feedback of what do you like about this game, we're willing to give you or unlock exclusive content for you. I mean, I would be like, I feel like a YouTuber now. They're going to give me free stuff to tell them what I think? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, I mean, going back to the very, very beginning of where we started, Dungeons & Dragons, they're coming out with a new, like a unification, 1D&D, whatever. There's a lot of people who are really sour about it online. And really what it is they're just taking everything that they have, consolidating it into something that gives people more flexibility, but they're asking people what they want. And they're like releasing things and saying, hey, this is what we have, tell me what you think about this, and we'll take it and we'll edit it and we'll go forward.
Make it more accessible for new and casual players.
It's partially open source.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
And even if you're not letting like people, like, I have no right touching game code ever. But I mean, like, opinions matter, and when there's hundreds of thousands of people that are mad about the way that a game turned out or whatever, everyone's going to point out what they hated about it. And when there's a really great game, people are going to point out that they love the game. And some people have a hard time putting their thumb down on, like, this is exactly what I like.
Yeah.
But if you can't articulate, like, okay, this is what I liked about the game specifically, even just giving the feedback of, I would pay for another game like this.
Yeah, that's still invaluable.
It's awesome, because in an industry that's just, it's honestly a graveyard where nothing has been buried. It's just a bunch of bones scattered, and you're like, hey, is there anybody alive in here? I don't know. And so you start digging through it, and you find some poor guy that's been there for 2 weeks and never eaten or drank anything. And then you're like, hey, I found you, whatever. And that's, it's really sad, the reality that it's become. But there is hope, and that's like, I'm excited about it. I found, the the roguelike games, I think is like the genre that I've been looking for. Honestly, I had no idea that was even a genre until like maybe a month ago. And since then, I put an unhealthy amount of time into games like that.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that we went this long without bringing up the title, but Across the Obelisk.
Oh yeah, there you go.
If you guys have not played that game, it is
It's speechless.
It is so fun. I love that style of game, that type of game. Everything about it they do right. And if they don't have more content planned, I would be kind of upset. Like, honestly, even if it's Across the Obelisk 2, take my money, take it twice over. Very fun game.
And it's a roguelike deck building game with cooperative gameplay, multiplayer gameplay, correct?
Yeah, you can play it with people online, and it's not PvP, so you're not like, hey, hop online so I can smack you around with this OP deck that I paid $40 for. It's like, hey, let's go smack some people. Let's go dungeon.
Smack up some AI.
Yeah, and it's super duper fun.
And that's something different. I've never heard of a cooperative roguelike deck building game.
And there's so many different ways to play it. Like they talk about, you can make your party with whatever, that's super fun, but it's way more fun when you're doing co-op and you're this should never ever work, but we're gonna make it work. And we're not gonna stop until it works.
The pioneers.
Who needs a healer? We're bringing 4 barbarians. Let's go. It's just super fun, and that's a really cool aspect. So we're definitely gonna play multi, because I've heard that there is a difference. Like, multiplayer campaign is different than the solo.
Oh wow! Okay.
Way cool.
Holy cow.
Anyway, it would also transition phenomenally to mobile.
Oh.
Whether it's a tablet...
You should try to contact the developers and see. I wouldn't be surprised if they respond.
I mean, I'm basically a walking skyscraper. We touched at the beginning that I'm tall. If you want to do advertising, let me know, man. I'll wear... Everything that I wear is seen by hundreds
I will be the obelisk.
Hundreds of people. You can see it from the coast to coast. Like, anyway. Seriously, though, like, if anybody knows, let me know.
Yeah, seriously. But that's just the thing, is that I feel like that's kind of the future of mobile gaming, is taking the games that are on other platforms that are good and translating them to mobile, especially when it's an easy transition, such as card games, which in previous episodes we've touched on that. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope that does come.
And I love that it was very much a one-time upfront purchase. Mm-hmm. No advertisements.
Especially with multiplayer in it too. That's a rarity nowadays. Yeah. No
advertisements. No, like, even if I wanted to, I could not pay them more money for the game that they developed, which means they earned every penny of what I paid at the start.
It's a good way to describe it.
Yes, and that's very much what it is. I'm taking a risk on your game, and they have very much impressed me, and so they've earned far above what I feel like. I didn't pay for $20 experience. That was hundreds of dollars worth of entertainment in a $20 bill, which is impossible, I feel.
And you've got a fan of your games for life.
Yes. And anything that they develop and produce and whatever, I'm on board with. I'll at least give it a shot. Whether or not I like it, this is the first time anybody's ever heard the way or cared about anything that I've ever said. And so, not that they'll hear about it, but I will give it a shot. And that's like what I feel developers need to be focused on, is not, you don't need to have every single person on the planet excited for what you make, because the people who are your loyal developers or whatever, or the loyal players, will share it with other people, and eventually you will cover everybody in the market.
Yeah, nowadays word of mouth is more powerful than ever now. And word of mouth includes like your own personal social profiles and pages and sharing it with others. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing, in a world where social media, there's so many opinions out there. Getting a text from somebody that is, I played this game and it is unbelievably fun. We got to hop on and play it sometime. That will be infinitely more influential than
garnering a wide player base at the start, but then you peter out.
And that's so that's kind of my wrap up conversation. But I feel like we forgot to touch on the pinnacle of mobile gaming. I mean, I don't know how we missed it. Like AAA studio, 100% absolute top of the S tier game, Among Us. That's what I was laughing at so hard earlier, because you were talking about all of these fantastic games at the top of the list. I have no idea why, but there's something about it that just made
I was
me
like, what is he?
This
is off. This is off the talking points.
But again, like
another fantastic indie game that literally was around for like 3 years until it caught big.
And that's the thing. Again, what it did, like when we're talking, this is serious though. Like it's the meme of the internet. I don't know if it'll ever go away. Honestly, it feels like it's everywhere. It's here to stay. We're gonna have Among Us on our $5 bills or something like that. When you like the new counterfeit, when you turn Abraham Lincoln to the side, it becomes Among Us. I don't know, but like honestly, it was that very couch co-op feel. You jump into a game with a bunch of people. Some of Xbox Live days, you don't know who anybody is, and it gives you the ability to lie, cheat, do whatever you want to win the game, and that's fun because you're not, you know, you don't.
You create the fun almost.
Yeah.
They gave you the parameters, and you created the fun.
Exactly, it's not overcomplicated. That's a perfect example.
Anyone can play it.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of something that is simplistic, and you know, sure, you pay $5 to play that and whatever, but
on mobile it's free.
Yeah, does it have advertisements every time you try to do a task?
It's like it like pops up and you click on the ad on accident.
Why were you standing in the admin for so long? I said, I had a 3-minute unskippable ad that popped up. I did card swipe first try, but then I was just...
I am literally going to clip that up and put it as a preface to this episode.
Yeah, that's probably... I mean, you come back and it's like, oh man, I just watched a 3-minute unskippable ad. By the time I came back, everybody else was already dead.
And they voted me off. Yeah, they voted me off. Oh man, but I think we have touched on like pretty much everything that I had in mind. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
Let me just see. I had some hot takes written down. Let me just see if there's any of these other ones that are really...
You want to leave everyone enraged?
That are just groundbreakingly infuriating. I don't know if this is making anybody like upset or anything like that, but like to sum up kind of where I think I'm at, and I think where you're at as well, I would rather play a 1-bit, we're talking like Pong on the original Atari game, than play something that is like literally identical graphics to walking outside and looking at a tree. If they understand what their game, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to focus on, if it has atmosphere, soundtrack, if it has a depth, if there's a storyline, whatever it is that they're going to focus on, if they do that one thing better than anybody else or uniquely, again, I could give less of a crap about graphics.
About textures, yeah. I feel like the games have focused so much on that nowadays is because that's the only realm that has been untouched, basically, at this point. It's like the only way to advance. But even now, graphics have maxed out pretty much.
And that's not to say that like graphics aren't really impressive. I mean, Halo Infinite might be triggering for a lot of people. I think it does a lot of things really well. The atmosphere in that game is better than any of the other ones, and that's saying something because Halo has been very atmospheric at its core. But again, if there's problems with it, if there's a part that people don't like, skimp on the graphics, and you'll have a lot more people tried and true to you than if not. One of the things, last point, across the obelisk, there is a storyline, and it's, you know, again, it might not be like groundbreaking or super unique or anything like that, but there's only one person who does lines, and it's at the very beginning and at the very end, and everything else that's in between that's a cutscene or that's like a dialogue or whatever is text and very true to its art style storytelling.
Yeah.
And so I'm not looking at that game like, why doesn't this have 8-bit graphics or like 8K graphics?
Why don't I have voiceover for everything?
Obviously, when this guy swings his great axe, it's obvious that it weighs the same as a pool noodle. Like, why doesn't it seem like he's swinging a car? And I'm like, I don't care if somebody gets flattened by it. That's not what I'm playing the game for. And so, kind of to that point, that's a great example of a game that I think is the future of mobile gaming, and I think does everything right, knows who it is, knows what it's going to do, and if you're looking into getting into gaming, the moment, mobile development, whatever, decide whatever it is that you value most in a game, and ride that train to the station. Right at home.
Bank on it. Wow. Drop the mic. Don't drop the mic. But
what about throwing shot put?
But thank you, Tanner, for being a guest on the Minty Mobile Games podcast. He was gung-ho. He was ready to go. So I appreciate it, especially for literally I just had to sit back and let you run the show, and it was perfect.
I need to go to therapy after all this.
All this dug up trauma from this episode.
Again, I don't know if I'll be back ever again. But
I'm sure he will.
Appreciate the invite and letting me take a dunk on a bunch of kids. A lot of fun.
And as always, leave a like, comment down below anything that you guys heard. If you made it to this point in the video, you might as well subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like, what the crap are you thinking? Leave that like and comment down below any thoughts about anything we've talked about. We're interested to know. I know me and Tanner will be definitely perusing the comments. So
please let me know if I'm totally off base and I just need to shut up and go in my room and never speak again. But if I'm right or something like that, and you feel similarly, like if you know somebody who's either on board with this or who might have their eyes opened from the unholiness that gaming has become, send that to somebody else, because this is how you like make a difference. Is you find somebody who's that you identify with and you send it on. And again, I might be totally wrong, and if that's the case, please tell me, because then I know to not ever say anything ever again.
So no pressure. What a great way to end the podcast. I hope you guys are staying safe and take it easy.